Hi, so today I'm going to talk about After Dark by Haruki Murakami. Now, this was my first Murakami's novel that I read, and I got interested in him after this, so I read the other famous ones. So, Norwegian Wood, Kafka on the Shore, Wild Sheep Chase, but I still like this one the best. And I've not many people who have read After Dark. It's fairly small novel, and it's different from his other famous ones. First of all, there is a woman who's a protagonist, which is not common in Murakami's novel. At least the famous ones that I've read, there's always a boy who's the protagonist, and there's almost a formula to Murakami. There's a boy, and there are a lot of women who are interested in him, and he's basically special for some reason, and he's getting a lot of action. Not that it doesn't work. I mean, it works. I like Murakami's novels. They're entertaining. But yeah, you do understand that there is a formula there, and Murakami is very good at it, complementing the absurd environment that's usually premise of his novels, adds to the overall style of Murakami. And even in this one there is an absurd setting. So the element of absurd in After Dark is the protagonist, Mari's elder sister. She is asleep, and she has been sleeping for quite some time now, and nobody knows when she'll wake up. So one day suddenly she declared that she's about to go on a long sleep after dinner. She barely had anything, and then she slept, and she has never woken up after that. And the protagonist mentions it just like that to one of the acquaintance. Maybe she's sick. We don't know, and we never get to know throughout the novel. And she's been observed all the time while she's asleep. It seems like a metaphor for a very beautiful woman who's not awake, but people around her are very aware of her beauty, and so she becomes an object of observation. Or it can also mean that she's so numb, but that doesn't affect people from seeing her as an object of beauty. She remains that despite her being asleep or numb. That's my reading of this character, and it intrigued me so much. One of the reasons why I kept coming back to the novel. Also the starting of the novel. So there are some novels which have such interesting start that it just stays in your head. The starting has nothing to do with the rest of the novel, actually. So we are introduced with the night landscape of Tokyo in the beginning of the novel, and we look at Tokyo from a bird's eyes, literally from a bird's eyes, or a bird's eye view, as the bird keeps gliding lower and lower, and then in the end the perspective changes and you see the city. I'll read the beginning of the novel. It's very interesting. Eyes mark the shape of the city. Through the eyes of a high-flying night bird, we take in the scene from mid-air. In our broad sweep, the city looks like a single gigantic creature, or more like a single collective entity created by many intertwining organisms. Countless arteries stretch to the ends of its elusive body, circulating a continuous supply of fresh blood cells, sending out new data and collecting the old, sending out new consumables and collecting the old. sending out new contradictions and collecting the old. So the city is described as a living creature. And then you're introduced to these several characters. So the story happens in a span of a night. Our protagonist is not willing to go home, it seems. For some reason, she doesn't want to go home. So she packs her bag, packs some big books, and decides to stay at a outlet of sorts, which is open 24/7 throughout the night. She's waiting for the first train in the morning, and that's when she'll board it and go back home. So the story is the story of her one night, where she meets these several characters. Now, there's some characters she doesn't directly meet, but they're connected through other characters and we get to see them. One of those characters is the salaryman, who will look very prim and proper. He's overworking, it seems, but in the night he goes to a motel and books a service. Prostitution is one thing which is taken very casually, it seems, in Japanese culture. So it's almost like it's not even seen as a cheating or something. But I don't know. That's beyond the scope of this book's review. So this salaryman, who looks very prim and proper from outside, what he does when he's in a closed room and not accountable for his actions. So that's one character. Then there is this musician, a mature musician, who was once an acquaintance to Mari. He clearly is interested in her. They have a conversation. And then there is the motel owner, who needs help of Mari at one point in the novel, because a prostitute who's been attacked in her motel by that salaryman. She's a Chinese migrant and she's not fluent in Japanese, so they can't, communicate with her. And Mari knows Chinese, so she becomes their translator. It's an interesting story because all these characters, how they get connected with one another throughout the story of night, and you see this nightlife of Tokyo, not a cutesy fun nightlife, but the darker side. And so the name of the book, After Dark. While there's a musician who's practicing in a garage at night, and a girl who's just simply reading a book because she doesn't want to go home in an eatery, there are other things that are happening simultaneously. There's a very interesting layering of safety and risk, darkness and normalcy mingled, negotiating each other so closely. It makes a very interesting read. I imagined a style of Murakami after reading this novel. But the next 3 novels that I read, the formula has changed. There is a set formula in those 3 novels, not in this one. So I was wondering if you have read any other Murakami novel and it seems close to this one. Let me know. I would like to read something in this vein. That's it for this video. See you next time. And subscribe maybe.